Hey everyone, Ross with RV Tips and Travels. Today I'm going to walk you through our winterizing process. It's going to be a very comprehensive video that we hope is easy for you to follow and understand so you can properly and confidently winterize your RV. This, my friends, is the Winterizing Masterclass. Okay, we have a lot to cover, but understand no matter where you get your winterizing information, even if that's from this video, you should always make sure you are at least covering the recommended steps that are in your owner's manual. Winterizing is just the process of getting all the water out of your lines and tanks so it doesn't freeze, expand, and damage the plumbing lines, the valves, the fittings, or any other components. The process is absolutely necessary if your camper is exposed to freezing temperatures over the winter, and you are a seasonal camper or weekend warrior who's not using your camper during that time. There are primarily two ways to winterize an RV. The first method is using antifreeze. This method involves running RV-safe antifreeze through the lines to push all the water out. The antifreeze will then stay in the lines until you de-winterize in the spring. The other option is to use compressed air to blow all the water out of the lines. Both of these methods will do the job, but there are differences in the two. You will see a link right up here that will take you to the compressed air winterizing video if you want to watch that one. In this video today, we're going to cover the antifreeze method. In certain situations, owner's manuals make no mention of winterizing certain areas of the plumbing system, which got me thinking. We've all seen posts from someone online whose camper is leaking water all over the floor, but we rarely see that discussion go in the direction of trying to find out what actually happened. Instead, it's chalked up to crappy plastic fittings, or the manufacturer didn't tighten something during the production process. Those may be the reasons in some cases, but there are certain situations where it could be from not properly winterizing your RV. I just think that's a logical reason why some people get leaks. Additionally, owner's manuals don't give you much information past winterizing the plumbing system in your RV. But there really is a list of other things you should consider when winterizing your RV. We're going to cover all of those things. Now, I would recommend watching the entire video through at least once before you winterize your camper so you know the time frame, the tools, and the materials that are needed. We'll be demonstrating on a 2018 Grand Design Imagine 2150 RB. We have the standard connection panel in our trailer, but you may have a different connection panel. You may have a different RV altogether. That's okay, the process basically remains the same. The location of the valves, water pump, and faucets may be different, but if you understand the principle of how to winterize, you can apply this process to any RV. Also, you'll need to empty your waste tanks at some point during this process, and always dump your waste tanks according to your local laws and using appropriate facilities. I can't possibly tell you what's legal in your area or what chemicals you can or can't put in your specific septic tank, but you will need to empty those tanks, and it's something you should have in place before you start the process. In addition to that, you will be starting this process with your black and gray tank valves closed. So let's get started. We're going to cover the plumbing system first. First, connect your shore power and open all your slides so you have access to all the areas inside your RV. Next, we're going to empty our water heater because that's one of the components in the RV we're not going to put antifreeze in. Your water heater tank is made of metal, and certain types of antifreeze can corrode metal. The most obvious reason is you can drain it, so there's no reason to put antifreeze in there. Your water pump should be turned off right now, and before we drain the water heater, open your pressure release valve first. If you remove the drain under pressure, you're going to get drenched and possibly burned if your water heater was on recently. Next, we can remove the drain plug. I see a lot of people say they have issues getting to this thing easily, but if you just use some ratchet extensions, it's fairly easy to get to. Drain all the water out of your water heater. Now listen, there may still be a small amount of water at the bottom of your water heater tank. However, that amount is going to be so small that if it does freeze and expand, it's not going to expand enough to do any damage inside your water heater tank. Once the water heater is empty, you can go ahead and close your pressure relief valve. Now, some folks will leave the drain plug out to help promote evaporation of the little bit of water that may be left in your water heater. Some people will put the plug back in to keep bugs out. Either option is perfectly fine. What I do is I'll take a paper towel and just kind of put it inside that water heater drain. It will still allow airflow, plus it will keep any bugs from getting in your water heater. Before you head back in, you can now open your low point drains. Your low point drains are the lowest point on your pressurized plumbing system, meaning by opening those, you're going to drain most of the water out of your system. Now, low point drains will not drain your freshwater tank or your waste tanks. We're going to get to those later. Go ahead and close the low point drains once they're empty. And since I'm still outside my camper and close by, I'm going to open the drain on my freshwater tank. Once your freshwater tank is empty, leave your freshwater tank drain open. That's going to come into play later on in the process. Now that the water heater is empty and most of the plumbing lines are empty, we're going to go over to our water heater and turn the bypass valves into Winterize mode so that when we start pumping antifreeze through the system, none of it is going to go into the water heater. In most cases, these valves will be located at your water heater. Now, your setup may look a little bit different, and I'll cover two of the most popular bypass valve setups in a second, but let me start with a 3-valve system, which is what we have. Okay, so this is my water heater. It's a 3-valve setup, and let me explain how this works under normal operation first. So you have water that comes up through this line here. This valve is open because it's parallel with the line. Water goes into the water heater here, gets heated up inside the water heater, comes out this line, which is also open. This valve right here is open because it's parallel with the line, and then goes up here and out to all your hot water faucets. So what we need to do is we need to first stop water from going into the water heater. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to close this cold water valve, which will stop any water from going in. When a valve is closed, it is perpendicular to the line that it's on. We also want to close this valve. We don't want any water coming out of the water heater. So we're going to turn this. Now this valve is closed and this valve is closed. Now we still need to get antifreeze that would normally go through this valve out to the hot water side. So we're going to run it, instead of going into the water heater and out the line here, we're going to run it up what's called the crossover line. Now there's a valve on here that should be closed because it's perpendicular with the line. We're going to open that. So now antifreeze will come up through here, and out to your hot faucets. So when your cold water valve is closed, your hot water valve is closed, and your crossover valve is opened, that is winterized mode, which allows us to run antifreeze from the cold side up through the crossover and out to the hot side. And that's it. Now, a lot of manufacturers are also using a 2-valve setup, so let me explain that because I'm sure there's a bunch of you guys that have that type of setup on your camper. Just like a 3-valve setup, you have water coming from your tank or your city water connection up to here. This type of valve, when pointed at the water heater, directs the flow of water towards the water heater and blocks the flow of water going into the crossover line. Then the water is heated and comes out of the hot side valve, which is positioned the same way as the cold valve, and then out to the hot water faucets. To bypass the water heater on a 2-valve system, you simply point the valves in the direction of the line that they're on. Cold water flow now comes up to this valve, but is now directed through the crossover line, back down to the hot water side and not the water heater, completely bypassing the water heater. There are other variations out there, but these are two of the more common setups that you're going to see. Your owner's manual should have a very clear diagram on how to bypass your water heater if you're still a little bit confused. And as always, if you have any questions at this point, just put them down in the comments below. The water heater is now bypassed. Now we are about to start running antifreeze through the water pump into all of the lines, but that will not put antifreeze into every line that sees water during the camping season. The first spot is the fresh tank fill on your connection panel that runs water over to your fresh tank. It is not connected to the water pump, and therefore you will never be putting antifreeze into that line. Now, if you use your fresh water tank fill during the camping season, there's probably water still in that line that we need to get out. Grab your air compressor and set it to 45 PSI max. You'll want to pick up a fitting like this one too. I'll put a link to this down in the video description along with all the other products we use in this video in case you want to check those out. Basically, this fitting will allow you to connect a standard female air compressor fitting over to a garden hose inlet, just like the one that you have on your connection panel. Connect the fitting between your air compressor line and your connection panel and blow air through this line. Now, if you remember a couple steps ago, we left the fresh water tank drain open. So if there's any water in this line, you're going to see it come out of the bottom of the tank drain. All you got to do is just run air through this line until you don't see any more water coming out of the bottom of your fresh water tank. We also want to repeat this process for the city water connection, which also originates at your connection panel and is before the water pump. But don't switch the valve over to city water just yet. Go inside your camper with the water pump turned off and open one of your faucets. It doesn't matter which one, just open one side of one of your faucets. Now you can switch the valve over to city water and hook up your air and blow air through that line. If you go back in your RV, you'll hear that air coming through that open faucet. Once that line is empty of water, disconnect your air at the connection panel first, then you can go back inside and close that faucet. Now you only need to blow out your city water connection opening one faucet, because by the time we start running antifreeze through the water pump, that pump is positioned before where all the lines split in your RV to go to the different faucets. That may be a little bit confusing. Just know that you only need to open one faucet to blow out the city water connection line. Another line is your fresh tank gravity fill, if you have one. Now yes, this line does run downhill, and any water that's in there is probably just droplets, but it can't hurt to run a little bit of compressed air down through that line to make sure there's nothing sitting in there. Another line that's never going to see antifreeze that may have water in it is your black tank flush port. Just go ahead and connect your air compressor to your black tank flush port and blow air through there for about 30 seconds. That should get all the water out. Now, before we run antifreeze through the system, I want to take a quick second to mention any specialty or aftermarket equipment that a few of you may have in your RVs. Any water filtration systems on your plumbing lines that are located after where you introduce your antifreeze should be removed or bypassed at this point in time. You don't want or need to run antifreeze through water filters. It is important though that if you bypass these filters, you need to make sure they are either blown out or free of water. If you have any other aftermarket or specialty equipment like an aqua-hot system or a washing machine, you need to refer to the owner's manuals for those items at this point in time in the process as well. It would make for a very long video that wouldn't apply to the majority of you guys if I were to cover all the aftermarket or specialty equipment options that could be tied to plumbing, especially since, for example, there are different winterizing methods for different models of washing machines. Next, we're going to start running antifreeze through all of the lines. You'll need to access your water pump. Mine is below the kitchen sink countertop. Some of you with more complex panels like the Nautilus system might have the pump right at the connection panel. And if that's the case, you're just going to need to switch your valves over to Winterize mode. On the water pump, you should see a hose that's a couple feet in length with a cap on it. That is your antifreeze hose. Under normal operation, the pump draws water from the tank through this line into the pump and out to your faucets. There is a valve on your water pump that should be in line with the freshwater tank, which allows flow from the freshwater tank through your water pump, but also blocking flow to this antifreeze hose. Just turn this valve so it's pointing in line with the antifreeze hose, which will open flow from the hose and close flow from the tank. Now, before we break out the antifreeze, it's worth mentioning to do some research on the antifreeze that you choose. There's antifreeze that is ethanol or alcohol based, does have a little bit of an odor, and you may taste a little bit of a difference in your water from your lines. Alcohol can also have a tendency to dry out rubber seals in your camper, but a lot of people are using this type of antifreeze. There's also an antifreeze made of propylene glycol. This is a synthetic alcohol, and it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but is near odorless, tasteless, and is non-toxic. It works well to retain moisture, so it's a little bit better for rubber seals too. And ultimately, your choice of antifreeze should be a decision that you make based on your own research. Back to the process, remove the cap from the antifreeze hose and put this hose down into the bottom of your first bottle of antifreeze. If you do this, you're going to need to remove your antifreeze hose from that bottle once it becomes empty and put it into another bottle of antifreeze. So it's good to have all your bottles of antifreeze right here and ready to go. How much antifreeze you need is going to be based on the length of your RV how many faucets you have, and how sparingly you use it. My trailer is 27 feet from tongue to bumper, and I use between 2 to 3 gallons total. A little trick that I use is I'll just pour all my antifreeze into a bucket. That way I never have to switch the hose, and I don't have to worry about cleaning antifreeze up off the floor. Once your hose is in your antifreeze, go ahead and turn on your water pump and let the antifreeze pressurize the plumbing lines, but don't turn off the power to the water pump just yet. I always start with my kitchen sink, but you can pick any faucet to start. Open the cold side of the faucet and let it run until you see antifreeze come through the faucet. Close the cold side and open the hot side. Just a note, when you turn on the hot side, you're going to see antifreeze immediately come out, but that's just leftover in the cold side. So you want to let it run for a second. You'll see that antifreeze clear up, go back to water, and then you'll see antifreeze come back through. Once you have antifreeze through the cold and hot side at that faucet, shut the faucet off and complete this process at every other faucet inside your camper. That means your bathroom sink, your shower, and anywhere inside the camper there is a water faucet. And a quick tip, when you do your shower, take your shower head off the wall and hold it by the drain on your shower floor. If you don't do this, you're going to get antifreeze everywhere. And remember, one side of each faucet at a time. Don't forget the toilet as well. And it's important to leave an inch or two of antifreeze over the ball valve on the toilet so the rubber ball valve seal doesn't dry out over the winter. Over time, ball valve seals can leak. So every month or so over the winter, I'll come in and just check the antifreeze level inside my toilet. And if you notice that it's dropped, you can just add a little bit more antifreeze. Also, depending on the temperature inside your camper, you may notice that the antifreeze inside the toilet over the ball valve will slush up over the winter. This is completely normal. It may slush up a little bit, but it's not going to completely freeze. You want to clean up any antifreeze drips or splatters that you may have gotten from running antifreeze through the faucets. It can leave stains, so you want to clean that stuff up immediately. Once everything is cleaned up inside, you want to head outside and run antifreeze through all the faucets, any sinks that you may have outside, and all the spray ports. It's probably not necessary, but I'll even crack open my low point drains last. Make sure there's antifreeze in those lines. You can never be too careful. If you haven't already, you've probably noticed that I added valves to my low point drains. I'll put a link to these down below. These will save you a lot of time when winterizing, de-winterizing, and sanitizing your RV. After you have run antifreeze through all the water lines in your RV, you can go ahead and turn the water pump off. The next step is to drop a little bit of antifreeze into the sink drains so it rests in the P-traps. At this time, I'll also put some paper towels underneath each faucet so any drips that you get will be soaked up by the paper towel and not leave any stains. And also, take your shower head off the wall, put it on a paper towel, and sit it on the bottom of your shower. You're now done with the winterizing hose, so you can go ahead and put the cap back on there. The next step is to drain your black and gray tanks. We've been asked in the past if it's okay to put some antifreeze in your waste tanks, and the short answer is yes. But just like the water heater, there's going to be such a small amount of water in your waste tanks after draining them that even if it does freeze and expand, it's not going to do any damage. So if you want my opinion, drain your tanks completely, close the drain valves, and call it a day. We've never had a problem doing it that way. You can also close your freshwater tank drain at this point in time. Some people will leave it open to allow it to breathe. We just close it so no bugs get in there. The plumbing is now complete, but I want to talk to you guys about some other things that you should be considering when winterizing that don't have to do with the plumbing. Cold temperatures can damage batteries and cause them to crack open. I remove all batteries from my RV. That includes the 12-volt DC battery that's up front that runs all your DC powered components, along with all the small batteries and smoke detectors, remote controls, flashlights, power tool batteries, and anything else that is battery powered. If you keep an inventory of extra batteries in your RV, make sure you remove those as well. Remove all food and drink items from your camper over the winter. Now I know that's common sense, but don't forget the salt, pepper, spices, cooking oils, all those things. You don't want to give animals or insects any reason to come into your RV over the winter. You'll also want to remove any liquid that could potentially freeze. That means cleaners, soaps, shampoos, tank treatments, anything that is liquid that could potentially freeze, take it out. Take out your first aid kit as well. There may be liquids, ointments, treatments, or other medicines that you don't want to expose to freezing temperatures. Close up all windows and vents that lead to the outside. That will include your skylight vents and the exhaust vent over top of your stove, so there's less of a chance for anything to get in over the winter. Leave your fridge doors open or install those plastic door cards that keep them cracked open. If the doors are closed, condensation can build up in your fridge due to temperature differences, and mold could start to grow inside your fridge. Make sure to leave your stabilizer jacks up. If one of your tires suddenly lose air, it's going to put excess pressure on those stabilizer jacks, and we all know stabilizer jacks are not meant to take excessive pressure. Another thing to consider, if you store your RV at an off-site storage facility, it might be a good idea to remove anything that has monetary or sentimental value over the winter. I have one more tip, but before we get to that, if you guys enjoyed the video and you thought it was helpful, return the favor, hit that like button down below, and we hope you consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss a video. And my last tip is this: when I'm winterizing, I will close up my RV as if I'm leaving a campground. If for any emergency I need to move my camper over the winter, I can just simply hook up, remove the chocks, and go. I'll put all the steps we discussed today in a checklist down below in the video description so you can copy them if you'd like. Let us know your winterizing successes or failures down in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you guys. That's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, happy camping. Leave your fridge doors. If you have any other aftermarket equipment, along with everything else, if you have any other, we also want to repeat this. Now you'll only need to do this for one faucet.